Let's start. The first topic in our agenda is called Back to Reality, and welcome to Rani Andreus from Cyprus. I'm going to switch to Spanish. The speaker is speaking in English. Nos estaba acompañando a los recorridos durante el fin de semana. Viene de muy lejos, un vuelo casi de un día a México. Muy bienvenido. Bienvenida y a todos los socios. I shall say that we are also in our website streaming UC&CS Spanish and English. With the support of all partners, we have simultaneous translation, and we have our partners of SLATV. They are streaming, and also Abarca Traductores. They are supporting us with the simultaneous translation and all the staff that we will introduce later on. We also have Estrategia Intelectual. They are also recording live. So let's start. So the first topic is back to reality. Last year, our dear friend and partner, Mr. Hugo López Araiza, made some forecasts, and he said this is going to happen. Seemingly, all of them were materialized. So now we're asking him to tell us about our status. We already had a shock. Let's see where we are and what are the next steps. He is a mechanical engineer from La Salle University, and of course, he is the moral leader of AUC Mexico, which is the Association of Technical Scholarship from Japan, and he was a very important member, and he is still. That's why we acknowledge him. He has practiced the Ikebana, the tea ceremony, bonsai, aikido, and kento. And I would say that he's one of the persons that knows business and general culture of Japan in Mexico. He has taken a lot of training courses in Japan out, and he's a pioneer in the Soroban teaching in Mexico. He has written 10 books about Soroban, and he's the ex-chair of the AUC Japan Association, the Keicho Center in Japan, and also chairman of the Association of Friends Mexico-Japan, and also the mathematical tournament. And of course, he has visited Japan 20 times. I think that they are more than that. Let's give the floor to our friend Hugo López Araiza to tell us where we are at and where we are going to. What's our status? Because I already told you what's the future. So I thank you to be in front of accountants, me being an engineer, talking about topics that are not related to accounting or economics. This is just my view of the world and what's happening, and I thank you for your attendance. Before starting, I want to say that last year we started with some security and safety announcements. Remember that it was September 25th when we had a meeting, and we live in a seismic zone, and we have a lot of earthquakes. We have an audio alarm in the event we have an earthquake in Oaxaca or Guerrero Coast. We have 1 minute to evacuate before we have the earthquake here. We need to go to a secure place. You have to take those stairs at the back. Please look at them. In the event we have a seismic alarm or you feel an earthquake, go in calm. Please don't rush. Buildings do not fall immediately. It takes a time. we had really evidence that they don't fall immediately. So it is easier to trip on our way, so be careful. Walk in calm. Just see where the evacuation route is. There's a parking lot next, and the meeting point is at the center. Please don't go to the street. It is very dangerous to go to the street. You have buses, you have cars, you also have electricity poles, so you can have an accident. And even the glasses from buildings can fall down and can kill us. So it is very difficult to go to the street. Please go to the back, to the parking lot. Now that you mentioned, I want to say this. In the news today, at noon, we are going to have a test of the speakers that announce the alarm. So keep calm. It is just a test. This is a drill. We had one on December 19th. Some of the speakers were not working, so they are going to test them today. So they are going to test them at noon. This is just a drill, okay? If there was something different, okay, we will hear it. But no, let's be prepared anyway. At noon, we will make an evacuation drill if you want, to see what it feels like. Okay, so getting back to reality. Last year, the conference was called Futurology, and I made some predictions. Remember that I had the crystal ball, and we started to see what was going to happen in the future. The first prediction was the end of the Chicago boys that were ruling our world economic system. And this is not to blame on them. Things have just changed, and we need a new economic system. I remember that I was talking about Alejandro Díaz de León and José Antonio Mir was going to be one of the finance ministry. He launched his candidacy, and then he lost, and now he's unemployed. So the first one was fulfilled, not the second one. Now, second forecast, the end of neoliberalism. I told you that James Tobin developed important contributions to study financial markets, preparing some theories to explain how financial markets affect the consumption of people and investment decisions. And probably on this side, we're going to have our economic system, because he's in the same school, which is Yale, and also the U.S. Treasurer was also from Yale, so that's the trend. So that was the reality. France, United States, and Mexico in the last 2 years have voted for charismatic candidates without traditional political party backup. This is very important. We're also experiencing a schism in the political arena. We do not have traditional politicians or the orthodox way of economics or handling finance and politics. So something curious is happening. All candidates are charismatic, pleasant, for those that voted for them, but they don't have any experience. Let's see the first one, Donald Trump. Donald Trump used the Republican Party for the presidency after failing with the Democrat and Reformist political party. This guy used the three political parties until he was successful with the Republican parties. He doesn't have any experience ruling a country. He has never even, he hasn't ridden a bike, has always used private airplanes, has never been in a commercial flight. So he's from the top level, he sees things from them, and he believes that the world can be handled by money. Now, Emmanuel Macron, look how fast his career is. In 2014, he was appointed economy minister. In 2016, he founded his own political party, A Marche, which is a populist political party. In the political parties that he was at, it was not enough for his ambitions, and he won with 66.1% of votes. Impressive. No one really believed that he was going to win, and this was only 3 years ago. He came out of nothing. And remember why he was famous? Who remembers why he's famous? What do you remember about him? His wife. He was popular because his wife is 20 years older. She was his teacher. They met and then they married. And he was really very nice with his wife. That was his campaign. Until now, but he has serious problems. It is not so easy just to speak than acting. And now we have López Obrador, our eternal candidate since 2006, then 2012, and now then 2019. He was also a militant of all political parties. He was in all of them, 13 political parties, and none of them were making him candidate because there was some others before him. They were not really interested in getting him into the presidency, but just for the Congress. The political Mexican system says that the more congressmen we have, more money for the political party. So he was launched as a candidate without any support, just to make congressmen to win, to have some money. Since 2006, he doesn't work. He doesn't have any employment. He has just toured the country. He says that he has made a tour 5 times of all the towns in a bus, never in a plane. He always takes his bus and he goes one village after the other. Everybody knows him. The way he managed to win was that he put the picture of him with the local candidate, so everybody voted him and the local candidate no. So that's the way they won. 50% of the votes. It was mayor and senate seats. They have more than 50% of the votes, and they can vote whatever they want. And he was, one of his mottos was that he was going to end corruption. A few weeks ago, the governor from Chiapas, the Green political party, also is a chamber representative candidate. He had some permit, a license as a governor, so he takes the representative candidacy and then he asks for a license and then returns. Supposedly he had to ask the Senate the permit to get back to the government. At first they denied it, and 2 hours after that the political party of the Chiapas governor gave 5 representatives, so they moved from the political party and have absolute majority, and then he got back to the position of governor. A lot of media have said that he's not corrupt, but his actions do not demonstrate that. Another important thing is that on July the 9th, Morena obtained the registry, and in July 2019, they won elections with 53.19 of votes. This was unprecedented for a lot of years. The last presidents have won with 30%, so we're getting back to the old times. Why all of these candidates won elections? Why these 3 persons that are atypical for politics won? To the way that we are usually used to, they won. That's why they won. This keeps me awake at night. I'm going to give you my own explanation. Let's get back to history. We saw Karl Marx last century. He reduces the human being to an additional element in the productive chain that has the same value in financial statements as a machine, a piece of furniture, or a car. And accountants know this better than anybody else. So the human being loses its identity and he becomes a production mean. It becomes an object. That's what Karl Marx made of human beings. And he does that in a book with the manifesto of the Communist Party that was not written by him, but he was ordering this book. Read it. If you read it back, you will see that many things are still current. But what happens is the following. What happens? In 1891, when the Pope Leon XIII realizes that the human being is losing its human dimension, he made an encyclic, called it Rerum Novarum. And this was a letter that the Pope, which is Rome, highest leader, sends to the world, giving the opinion of what's happening in that moment. No political power or any other political power. Catholics not even read it. But this letter had the principles to look for justice, and it also returned dignity to the man, making man a human being. And let's get back to history. Henry Ford. He founded Motor Company in 1903. He's the father of a modern production chain and mass production, and he makes men a link in the production chain. There are 2 stories that I want to mention here. Henry Ford used to say, you can buy the 4T of any color, which is black. He standardizes everything. There's a film called Modern Times by Charles Chaplin. In that film, Charles Chaplin depicts what's happening in production assembly lines. And he was just screwing, and he keeps on doing the movement, buttons, everything. He was completely automated. So that was what was experienced back then. As time passed by, 1 century after that, this repetitive movement disappear. It takes a process in small segments, which are very simple to avoid errors. And these robots have substituted some people that are out of the market. So we owe this to Ford, who made a man just a link in the production chain. Now, the Constitution of Mexico that was enacted on February the 5th, 1917, a historical fact. This was the first constitution in history that included social rights. Probably you are not very familiar, but Mexico's revolution, well, the Constitution took that slavery was taken away and workers and farmers were subject to long hours and very little pay. So we had this revolt that became the revolution back then, and when they won, they included the ideas in the Mexican Constitution, the idea of social justice. So this was the first constitution including social rights and also regulates labor relationships that were not regulated anywhere and gives the rights to union associations that didn't exist back then, to create labor unions for better labor conditions, and institutes the labor journey of 8 days. It says that we have the right to work 8 days, to rest 8 days, and 1 free day a week. Not specifying which one, could be any of them, but usually it's on Sunday in general, but now with malls opening on Sundays, some people has their resting day on Mondays or Tuesday. And as you can see, all of them are reactions to what was happening back then. What happens with Akio Morita? He was Sony's chairman. In 1954, he created the transistor radio. He realizes after Second World War that each home has a radio. And my father used to say the following: we used to have a radio at home, and he never wanted to change the upholstery, the wallpaper, and there was really a steam because all of us used to lean on the wall. So the family gathered to listen to the radio. Akio Morita was wondering why we have a radio at each household. Well, due to the volume of each radio, they used to have bulbs. So he was thinking about reducing the size of a radio so every person has a radio. Look at this mindset.
So he went to the U.S., to California, and he founded the transistor patent. The bulb was had the size of a bottle, was this big, rounded, and the bulb was smaller. So he bought the patent in California of the transistors that never paid attention to, and he produced it massively, as Ford did, and then he launched the transistors radio. Then we had all the inventions of Sony. All of them focus. Please see all the inventions of Sony, and you will see how they are all focused like customized. We have the video cameras, we have all the DVD Everything is individualized. Sonny says, why I'm going to sell only one TV set or only one radio or record player if the family has 7 people. I'm gonna sell like 7, only one for the 7. So he transformed the man in a consumer. See how man has been evolving throughout time, releasing him of its role in the production, but far away from releasing it, made him or her slave to money. If they do not have money, they can consume all the wishes of the industry. What has been said in the media cannot be fulfilled because I'm lacking of money. So he makes him a slave again. In 1970, the federal labor law was enacted, which is completely revolutionizing what regulates the work of women and children that was not regulated before. Hygiene and safety rules, training, work risk, and house rights of workers. We have an institute in Mexico that is called Infonavit. It's to give houses to employees. The IMSS was created, the social security system. Those are like 3. One part is given by the government, the other part is given by the employer, and the other part is given by the employee. And this pool contains like IMSS that provides all the health services as also the pensions, and also provides services like hospitalization and daycare facilities. This is what the IMSS does. And then we have the Infonavit, what all the model was like to create to build houses, and because of your savings, you would be able to get a loan by auction, so to speak, and then they discounted this in the paycheck, the monthly payment of the mortgage. So in 20,000, Infonavit now was released. You can ask to get a loan from a bank and also with Infonavit, but they got rid of the auctions part. And this law was completely revolutionizing. But why? The participation of the employees in the profits of a company. Well, everything that is distributed in terms of earnings, 10% goes directly to the employee. And is divided into 2 sections. You accountants know, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Half of the income or revenue is the amount of the salary, and the other one is the number of employees. So this is how the profits are distributed, more or less. And this law was really relevant and helped a lot to the employer and employees relationship. So the laws are like fighting against what is going on now. For example, the reality is making that the reality makes people to, so there's a counterweight between the laws and the economic reality of a country. So what happened? Sergey Brin, along with Riley Page, founded Google in 1996. Everybody knows Roger or Google Maps, the searcher. He foresaw the value of information through its free apps, extracts data of users and then sell them. These 2 guys, Larry Page, Sergey Brin, met in MIT in a PhD program that is called data mining. So as we extract from the land all the ores, all the information, is extracted in the same way, and then they are sold. Every time when we go freely, for free, using for free those apps, they know immediately our habits, where we go, why we are looking for those data, and those data are extracted and sold, and the companies start offering us their products. If they know that I'm constantly looking for music videos, you will get all those pop-ups of music in your computer, and this is how it works. So they constantly, from one point to the other, they start to offering me products from those businesses. This is what Google basically does. This is not for free. They are charging us anyways. Remember that when you pay, I hope this will be taken as a lesson. When you will charge, you will be charged you will collect twice. And this is the double payment theory. But basically, this is, I charge you, Mauricio, you owe me 1,000 pesos because I gave you an advisory in accounting. And then he grabs his checkbook, and, well, we don't have checks anymore, but he pays me. And then he asks me, I ask him, what do you think about my service? And this is a double payment. Because what happens, because you didn't comply with this is good, and he's giving me all the information. This is the double payment I'm referring to. So when companies grow is when the CEOs of the companies are charged. One week of the month, I go and visit my customers, and I charge them twice. I am charging them twice, and this is how I have been able to remain in the market. Otherwise, I would have left. So this is called data mining, and what happens here? And he will transform the man in an object, in a consumption object. That is, we are consumed by someone else. We are consumed. We do not consume anymore. We are consumed. See how the concept changes. Now we are consumed. We are being extracted information. And this is where we stand currently. So what is the sad part of this? Something really sad happened here. There's a labor reform in 2012 and regulates the following, the outsourcing. What's outsourcing? Well, in this hotel, how many subcontractors, like translators, the audio, the cameras, the people at the back at the desk, and we have the hotel, who is also outsourced, and everything done by UC&CS America. So who is paying? Who is paying all those salaries? UC&CS America or whom? All of you, the companies that are hiring them. If I ask you if he works every day, probably he may say no when there's work. So when there's work available, I am paid? No, I get paid. No. And what about the Social Security and Infonavit? No, because I am paid with fees. So what happens? So the outsourcing system or temporary contracting, like initial training that didn't exist before, salary per hour. So with this reform, the employees lost incentives to work in companies. So what we are now going through, the fathers of children between 25 and 35 years of age. These are young people that do not want to work for any company. They just don't want, because there's no incentives. So here in Mexico, with this labor reform, if they do not have social security system, Infonavit, they get paid on the hour. The same thing is like for them is to work for one company or another. So if I'm getting paid on the hour, why I'm going to work full time? Like the roomies, the so-called roomies, that they just live together and they prorate the rent, and they live like hippies. They used to live. Something like that is going on. So they no longer drive Uber, they ride a bike, or because it's too expensive, or they go like walking. So this is what we are going through, because we are objects, consumption objects. Automatically, they are disincentivized, and they are not willing to have children. They don't want to have children in this world. They don't want them to suffer. There's no future incentive for us, let alone for them. So I just wanted to to give you the context of our reality. So what was established like today? Now this is called the death culture. So we can spend a whole session talking about this. What are the elements of the death culture? Well, the first one is consumism. I buy, I use, and throw. I marry, I get divorced, and then I get another one. This career is no longer useful. I can study another one, or not even to study a career. Now I have a friend, I use my friend, and then I change and have a new friend. This is what consumism means. The culture of using and throwing away. And this is used in human relationships and sexual relationship, any kind of interpersonal relationship. Ecology. There's an over-exploitation of everything. The electricity, sea, the atmosphere, human resources. The freaking, it is scandalous. Like to break the land and to extract the little oil that is there. It is a scandal what is going on there. So when Mexico has sold all the territory to foreign people, sometimes they do all this felling, and then they destroy the ecosystem in order to extract 1 gram of gold. And this is what is going on. So there's global warming. If Donald Trump wants it or not, it exists. And serious problems are happening, like all those floods caused by the rain. Well, also the contraception. When I was very young, in 1970, former President Echeverria launched a campaign that says, "Small family lives better." My father had 11 brothers. My mother's, I don't know, many, and I have 3 sons. I have no grandchildren. By then, my mother had grandsons, and I don't see a grandson in the future. And my wife is worried about the grandsons, but we don't even have a grandson. But please get worried about real things, not get worried about someone that hasn't is not born yet. So this labor reform has like 50 years old. And how we see this currently, like abortion. Let me happen what is going on in Mexico City. First of all, they say they have sexual relationships, well, with whoever you want. Wear a condom, and you can have them for free. But it failed. Oh, it doesn't matter. So it goes to a hospital and they give you the following day pill, the next day pill. No, I can't go. You have 3 months to murder your son. Don't worry. You forgot to take the next day pill. No, okay. So, okay. And then and you will get a scholarship because you're a single mother, okay? If you keep it. See how it is, everything is like distorted. So how they do to avoid having more people? Very easy. Abortion, promiscuity. So you can have sexual relationship with whoever you want, and homosexuality. Homosexuals have existed from Jesus Christ times. In the letter of St. Paul, you'll see homosexuals there, but now they are visible and they are well regarded. Well, if I say someone you are like a faggot or a faggot, it's really terrible because we are promoting this behavior because they don't want this to be reproduced, because the governments cannot maintain a lot of people, so they want to lower the population. So they are achieving this. We have horrible examples all the way around. And then spirituality. What happens with spirituality? They are promoting atheism. They do not even know what an atheist means. Do you believe in God? What's God? That's what they would say. What they say, I am atheist? No, but you believe in God because you're mentioning God, because you know what God is. Okay? Secondly, the anti-clericalism, all the scandals that we saw 1 month ago in the US, in Chile, and in Brazil, if I well remember, are horrible. We are judging with the eyes of the 21st century to an event that happened 50 years ago. 50 years ago, they were acting very different. Now we have zero tolerance. If someone is committing an abuse, they get rid of this person. 50 years ago, according to the parable, they say no. Then they had this parable when they were mentioning would say, let's remove this plant, but it's better to have the wheat. So they just scolded the priest, and they changed the priest to another church and kept checking on him. And now they are judging with current eyes to something that has happened 50 years ago. Those institutions are against the death culture. So they are. And lastly, technology. Technology, every time technology isolates us even more every day. So this is what happens. So where we are like in a meeting, everyone using their cell phone, but in another world. So what that culture leads us to an inhumane reality, which is solitude. We, as humans, we are gregary human beings that we need to be in groups. And this death culture makes us disgregated and makes us like solitary. This is what divide and you will defeat. So we are being divided in order to be more at their service. So this is what is going on. So all the overview is clear. So let's analyze what happened. First of all, we will see Donald Trump. It says, "Make America great again." Okay. the opposition of Trump to illegal immigration, free trade, and military interventionism. He doesn't want anything of this. They don't want to have immigrants, even if you're married. He's married to an illegal woman. The U.S. has grown 3 times thanks to the immigrants. It is a country of immigrants. They are no Americans. All they were killed in the 18th century. We still have some Americans in the indigenous reserves. He doesn't want to have like the military interventionism because he doesn't want like to continue killing Americans. He's taking what people believe that should be. Wide coverage to its campaign outside of the politically correct. When during the campaign of Trump's Trump's tweets make us like shiver. So now it is like it's lousy. He just talks, but he doesn't make anything concrete. So every time that Trump's tweeters has like less value from the news standpoint, but this is how he won. He just launched all his tweets and he was talking nonsense. And then the spontaneous use of social media that up to now he has kept doing this. So he's against of what was established, and he uses a lot the social media. Emmanuel Macron, Macron opposes to the traditional dualism of left and right. And he's similar to former President Echeverria. We are not neither of the right nor the left, on the contrary. So this is what Macron is saying. So he's considering a progressist. I don't know what that means. The keys that Europe is facing is a terrorist risk and a migratory challenge. Why the abortion practices that we are having in Mexico, in France are established, but they do not have French people. They are paying French people to have children, and they are accepting migrants, and they starting to reproduce. So they have more migrants than French or native French people. So what he says is that there's a migration challenge because they are populating France, and how they will do to merge the 2 cultures, because at the end of the day is a problem in the economic part, because a country without people does not produce. And France to be integrated to the global economy, rejecting protectionism all the way around than Trump, because the French reality is different from the American reality. So this is against of what Trump says, and also he uses the means and also social media to win his presidency. And at the end, we have Andrés Manuel López Obrador, the first of all, amnesty to end with violence in our country. We are going through internal terrorism when there's a lot of dead people. It's horrible. Last week, we knew about 3 fridge buses loaded with dead bodies, refrigerated in different places in Guadalajara. And it turns out that the owner was the forensic medical service from Jalisco. So, and we have 400 dead bodies there, like frozen. And in this one state, there will be 4 people that went missing. And it was a scandal. And the forensic medical service said, "What did you want me to do? I only have 50 places to enter dead bodies, and the law changed. I was given permit to incinerate dead bodies, and now I have to store them as an evidence where I shall put them. So the solution is to hire those fridge boxes, put the dead bodies inside, but since there's no space in the parking lot, I just change the buses because I don't have money to pay for the parking lot, and that's why they ended up in the whole state of Jalisco. So how they did find out, because one of them was rotten and it was smelling awfully bad. So there's 4,000 families asking for their loved ones, and it turns out that they were there. But information system don't want to reveal the information because this affects the investigation and how they are going to bury the body, because they will lose the evidence. So see how this is like an aberration. So the thing is that we have a series of dead people and people that went missing. The 42 students that went missing in Guerrero and nobody paid attention to them. We have violence at all times and dead people, and this guy says, okay, let's to put amnesty to end with violence. Okay, and I don't know, in a country of South America, I think this was in Colombia, that they did the amnesty, right? Was yeah, with us FARC, right? And at the beginning it worked, and then people didn't want to be trialed, or no, this guy he doesn't say how we will do it. He just want to do it. And then he derogated the education reform. He eliminated. So what happened? In Mexico, there was an education reform in which the teachers, through the union, could heritage their position to someone else. So they died, and the son became a teacher, and there was no way to remove them from there. It doesn't matter if they weren't like teachers. So the reform stated that the teachers were supposed to take exams, and if they have the minimum skills, will continue with the position, and every 5 years they would have this test, and they will carrying out this test, and a rural student, they found out that a rural student didn't know Spanish, and indigenous people, and there was like a revolution. So AMLO said to eliminate this education reform in order to avoid those problems. To establish a salary to young people that neither study nor work. My son will get a salary. He doesn't do anything because he say, okay, I'm going to have a salary. So see, why them? So those are votes for this person. Many people that voted for him is because in the 2000 he instituted a pension for elderly people, and the old people voted for him. This guy gave me a pension, please vote for him. And you are like pressure to vote for him. Now he's tackling the people from the grassroots. And then he has a very interesting sentence. We're going to end with the power mafia. The power mafia are the ones that are not him, okay? So he admitted all the politicians of other parties that requested to be accepted in Morena, and he created his own power mafia, which is Morena.
Coincidences. First, all of them handle social networks very well. They offer a bold change. They go against the status quo. They promise to eradicate poverty, and desperate youngsters are their basic voters. So this is what we're having now. As you can see, I always read the gospel. And I want you to read it with attention. Back then, Juan says to Jesus, teacher, we have seen someone that was expulsing demons on your behalf, and we have prohibited that because he's not from our group. And then he replied, do not prohibit it. No one that is doing a miracle on my behalf can be against myself. The one who's not against us is on our favor. So this is the first part of gospel. And look how it always matches with what we are seeing. God always has the right word to what's happening right now. The second part of the gospel says, I can assure you that the one that gives you a glass of water because you are the Messiah will not be without a price. What do you believe about this? Well, the person who's sent to the sea will drown. And if your hand is a sin, cut it. It is better than go to the new life without one hand. And if your foot is the sin, cut it. You cannot understand this part of gospel. No. What does that mean? In order to improve your worth, we have to do something which is very painful. Do it. Not to avoid pain, let's continue with corruption, corrupting our body and spirit. That's the meaning. So, you don't want to do something because it's painful? Well, it's cheaper than continue with something which is corrupt. So that's what we're seeing in the politics. There are many painful changes that will hit everybody, but that will be even better. That's a part of the gospel. So if something is the reason of a sin, take it away. And he's reading the gospel. Okay? Any question? Let's conclude. First of all, political events indicate that people cannot stand this economic model and they want radical solutions. It doesn't matter if they are possible, just radical. We need to offer alternatives that allow the progress for everybody, which is in our hands. As businessmen, we need to offer that. Well, thank you very much. Qué bueno que se nos olvida. Qué bueno que se nos olvida. ¿No? ¿De acuerdo? Any question? Any doubt? Ayer oí este evangelio. Yo no soy católica, déjame que te diga. That means something. Either you didn't understand anything, or I am really clear. Okay? We want to give you this participation diploma. Your participation has been wonderful and very spiritual for all of us. very illustrative. So I thank you in the name of ACS and CF. Thank you very much. Picture.